Hi everyone, today we are going to be learning how to measure to the nearest centimeter and meter and how to tie that in with our learning of decimals. First of all, I want you to make sure that when you look at your ruler, you can take a notice that there is a side of it that has inches and a side of it that will have millimeters and centimeters. Today we are focusing on the side that has the millimeters and centimeters. We had learned that 100 centimeters make up our 1 meter. So as we talk about our hole, the hole is the 1 meter stick, which is the 100 centimeters. Whenever you have a line, you want to take your ruler. You want to line it up at the very edge of your ruler, or some rulers start at 0. So you want to make sure you know how your ruler is starting. You want to line it up, and then you're going to see where it ends. Looking at the centimeters, this ruler is going up in increments of 1 centimeter. So we have 1 centimeter, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and about 8 centimeters. Now to tie this in with our learning with decimals, we had learned that our cubes are about 1 centimeter. So if I line them up piece by piece, this is another way to double check that we do in fact have our 8 centimeters. When I line them up, you can see that it is about 8 centimeters. So down here I'm going to be writing 8 centimeters. Now as we think about how this is in relation to the hole, our hole is the meter stick. As a fraction, this would be 8 of the 100 centimeters that make up our hole. The way that you write that would be 8 hundredths meter. You could put a 0 before it, so it would be 0 and 8 hundredths of a meter. That would be perfectly fine. But the 8 centimeters that you see from our line that we just measured are going to be 8 out of the entire hole of the 100. So it would be 8 hundredths. Let's take a look at this other sample. First step, you're going to want to take your ruler. Get the mouse here. Oops. You're going to want to take your ruler. You're going to want to be lining it up again right at the edge. So the edge of my ruler is starting with the edge of my line. And I'm going to count over by nearest whole centimeter. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these little marks that are a little bit longer between the whole centimeters are halves. Now, I'm asking you to measure to the nearest whole centimeter. So if we look at this, this is a little bit above 5.5 centimeters. Now, just like when we're rounding and we think about our halfway number, 5.5 is halfway between 5 and 6. So we're going to round to our upper number. So we're going to say that this line segment is about 6 centimeters. Now again, we're tying this into decimals, and having a hard time with my mouse here. So if I put down my centimeter cubes, you're going to see that I'm going to be having 6 of the centimeter cubes, and we can remember from our lesson that there are going to be 100 centimeter cubes out of our hole. So when I think about what this is in relation to our hole, we would be able to say that our fraction would be that this line segment is 6 hundredths of the whole. That is what it looks like as a fraction. Now, we do need to write it as a decimal. So you would write it, if we're thinking about what that is in relation to the whole of the meter, 0 and 6 hundredths. Now you can remember, the cubes are the hundredths, so I only have 6 of them. I have 0 of the tenths, or 0 of the longs, but I do have 6 of the hundredths. Let's do one more centimeter example. All right, take a look at this line segment. First step is to line up your ruler. Make sure you are on the metric side with millimeters and centimeters. Line it up at the start of your line segment, and you're going to count to see to the nearest centimeter where it ends. So here's my starting point. I have about 1 centimeter, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So this is going to be about 11 centimeters. Now, to model this with decimals and base 10 blocks, I have a long, And we learned that a long is going to be equal to 10 centimeters. So we can see that it ends right at 10. Then I'm going to take one of our cubes, line it up, and that will end at our 11 centimeters. Now, when I think about writing this as a decimal, it is 11 cubes out of the entire whole, which is the hundredth. So my fraction would be 11 hundredths. Now to write it as a decimal, to say what decimal is this or what fraction is this out of the whole, it would be 0 and 11 hundredths of a meter. Now remember, in our picture up here, I have one long, which are my tenths, and I have one cube, which are my hundredths. Take a look at my decimal. I have a 1 in the tenths place value. I have a 1 in my hundredths place value. So it is 11 hundredths of a meter. Now let's take a look, and we are going to practice measuring to the nearest tenth of a centimeter. Now, you will have noticed that in the first section of the video, we talked about our meter stick, our ruler, and I pointed out the whole centimeters, and then I pointed out to you the half centimeter marks. The line that is a little bit longer, those are the half. Now, between them, you'll notice that there are these teeny tiny lines. Those are called millimeters. And if you look here, there are 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. So between 0 and 1 centimeter, there are 10 little millimeters. So for this part now, we are going to be measuring to the nearest centimeter and then converting that to the nearest millimeter. And we are measuring to the nearest tenth. So if I move my ruler up to measure, again, I'm going to make sure I'm lining it up at the beginning of the ruler or at the 0. I'm going to count how many centimeters it is to the nearest tenth. So it is about 1 whole, 2 whole, and now if I look at the teeny tiny millimeter lines, this would be 2 and 1/10 of the whole, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths. So I'm going to say that this is about 2 whole centimeters and about 4 tenths. Because remember, the millimeters, 1 millimeter is 1/10 of the centimeter. Now, if I wanted to say what this was in millimeters, we would be going by multiples of 10. This 1 centimeter would be 10 millimeters. So when I get to the second centimeter, it would be 2 groups of 10. So it would be 20. And then I'm going to add on those little 4 millimeters. So it would simply be 24 millimeters. All right, let's take a look at another example. Let's take a look at this line segment. Line up your ruler with the starting point of the line segment and your ruler. And if I'm looking at this, I'm going to figure out how many centimeters this is. When I look at it, it is about 4 centimeters. And again, you can always double check this by using your cubes. If I line them up, I will see that there are about 4. And now I'm ready to convert that into millimeters. Now remember, there are 10 millimeters in each centimeter. So if I'm counting up by multiples of 10, this would be 10, 20, 30, and this ends right on spot. So it is going to be about 40 millimeters. Another example, taking a look here at this one. Again, lining up your ruler with the edge. We're measuring to the nearest tenth of a millimeter, so it could be anywhere of 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, all the way up to a whole. And when I'm looking at this, I can see that this is greater than 10. And then I can see that it is actually right at the halfway point. So I would say that this line segment is right at 10.5 centimeters. Now I'm doing it to the nearest tenth because I really want you to have practice using decimals. So that would be written as 10 and 5 tenths. That is our 10.5, or as a fraction, 10. And then there are 5 tenths. Now, how many millimeters is that? Again, for each centimeter, there are 10 millimeters. So we're going to count up by multiples of 10. So we have 10. We have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, we have 100, and we need to count the little millimeters. So 101, 102, 103, 104, and then the halfway point would be our 105. So I would write 105 millimeters. Now that you've had a chance to see several examples, I would like you to use your ruler and use the two worksheets that I've given you to measure your one sheet, the 3-11 sheet, measure them to the nearest centimeter. And again, you're going to be recording them to the nearest centimeter and then to the nearest decimal of the meter. And then when you use the worksheet for 3-12, you are measuring it to the nearest tenth of a centimeter. So I'm either going to see whole numbers or I'm going to see decimals to the nearest tenth. And then remember, convert it to millimeters, remembering that there are 10 millimeters equaling 1 centimeter. Happy measuring!